Hey guys, today I want to talk about what causes relapse. And when we think about the cause of relapse, often we think about all the external stuff. We think about things going on in our lives. Work is really hard right now. I had a big blow up fight with my wife, or the triggers, I came across someone that I used to use with. And although all of that external stuff certainly weighs in, it has influence on it, what and ultimately leads to relapse is what's going on internally. There's a spiritual principle that says, guard your heart and your mind. And those of us in recovery do that. You'll set up a guard in your mind. And if you picture a centurion standing outside the door of the castle, his job is to guard that castle. You picture maybe a medieval knight standing outside of the castle. In this scenario, or in this illustration, the castle is our life. And there's a dragon trying to get in the castle. And so you put up all these guards so that dragon can't get in. And the dragon in this illustration is addiction or substance use or compulsive behaviors. So what we'll do is we'll set up all of these guards out there to make sure that he can't come in. And the guards will say stuff like this: addiction, you can't come in. And one guard might be this truth. It's that I don't want to go back to the pain and suffering that I used to live in. And so that guard is there, and he's stabbing at the dragon, and he's saying, hey, I don't want to go back there. You can't come into my life because I don't want to go back to that pain and suffering. And another guard is standing out there, and he's saying, addiction, you can't come in because every time you come in my life and every time I fail, I feel like a failure, or I feel defeated. And there's so much guilt and shame associated with that. Another guard is standing out there, and he's reminding addiction, hey, you can't come in because every time you come in my castle, you ruin my finances and you ruin relationships, And there's another guard standing out there that says, addiction, you can't come in because every time you do, it hinders my spirituality if you're a spiritual person. Another one is saying, man, every time you come in, it leads to depression. So we got all of these guards that are basically the truth. And these guards are there saying, these are the reasons that I'm choosing to not let addiction back in my life. One of the guards is just standing there saying, hey, our life is a lot better inside here without you. My new life without addiction is good. So what does the dragon do? The dragon of addiction comes up to the guards and he challenges their reasoning. He tries to convince them to let me in. And so the dragon will use, I wrote down 4 different tools that we will sometimes do to try to convince ourselves, or that the addictive mind, that dragon will do to try to convince us to let him in. And the first thing that he'll do oftentimes, and this is what I've done a lot in my life, is minimizing. So what the dragon will say is, look, you never want to go back to the pain and loss. Come on, it's not that bad. The dragon just kind of tries to waltz in and like, hey, Joe, hey, Larry, to all the guards, like, I'm just going to come in here. It's not that big of a deal. When in reality, it is a big deal. It did ruin my life, my finances and relationships, and stunted my spiritual growth and all of those things. So that's one thing we need to be careful of. Am I beginning to minimize? Another thing that it'll do, the dragon will maximize, or this is what we call in counseling, catastrophizing. So what the dragon is trying to do here is get pity. And when it gets pity, it's like, guys, normally, listen, guards, normally I would never use, right? Normally I would never try to get in here and use, but life is exceptionally hard right now. My marriage is exceptionally hard. On a 1 to 10 scale, this is a 10, and I just need some relief. Can I please come in? And so we have pity and we let him in. But oftentimes, almost always, I always hesitate to say always, but oftentimes, almost always, it's not as bad as we make it out. Things are rarely a 10 on the 10 scale. And we will catastrophize to say, my marriage is so bad. My life is so bad. Whatever it is that's going on, it's so bad. That gives us permission. Could you just let me in? And we open the door and let addiction in because we maximized, we catastrophized. We made our life seem harder than it was in order to justify using. And another tool that the dragon will use is bargaining. The dragon will sometimes say something like this: hey, this time is going to be different. I know that I've used in the past and it messed up, and you have valid arguments. It leads to depression and ruined finances and relationships, but we'll convince ourselves this time it'll be different. This time, I've grown a little bit. I've grown up. I'm not going to go near to the extent that I used to. And then the dragon will kind of bargain with the guards and say, so would it be okay if I come in? Or we'll bargain with ourselves this way. The dragon of addiction will say, look, it's just going to be this once, just let me in because it's just going to be this once. See how we're bargaining with ourselves, and then we give ourselves permission. Another way we bargain is to say, I'll only use a little bit. Look, this is just going to be a minor little thing. So, you can let me in. I'm just going to use a little bit. These are lies that we tell ourselves. It gives ourselves permission to relapse. Another form of bargaining, or it might be kind of its own category, is reward. Maybe we are bargaining with ourselves and saying, hey, I deserve this, or maybe it deserves a category of its own, but I call it reward, or we reward ourselves. Look, I've been doing good. If anyone deserves a little bit of fun, I do. And so we talk the guards into letting us in because, rather you see it as we're bargaining and telling ourselves I deserve it, or, we're just, hey, I need to reward myself. So let me in. I deserve this. So guys, just two things that we need to take away from this. One, it's helpful to realize if I begin to see that I'm minimizing, or that I'm catastrophizing, or that I'm bargaining, or that I'm seeking to use a reward. I talk about all the time this idea of metacognition, thinking about what you think about. And we need to practice that. I realize that I've kind of been catastrophizing. Am I trying to give myself what they call in AA a setup? Am I trying to set myself up to use, to make it okay, give myself permission to use? Am I catastrophizing to set myself up, give myself permission, bargaining or rewarding? But the other thing that we need to do, we need to make a list of what these guards are, what these truths are, and then bolster it. The truth is, I don't want to go back to that pain and to that loss. And it's a good reminder today. I don't want to go back to that guilt and shame and feelings of defeat. I don't want it to ruin my finances again and my relationships, and go on and make those lists to bolster this is why. Guys, I hope that's helpful. I'm Brian on YouTube at New Life Recovery. As always, God bless you. I love you. Until next time, be well.